Hey everyone, I'm Adam Rippon. Welcome to the second episode of the podcast by Adam Rippon. The day the first episode came out, I was actually traveling to Wichita, Kansas to work at the U.S. Figure Skating National Championships. And I had a fantastic week and I saw so many friends. A few hours after I got home from Kansas, I learned about American Airlines Flight 5342 and the devastating news that there were skaters and coaches and their families on board. And my heart has been incredibly heavy. So out of respect, I wanted to wait before posting another episode. So to my skating family, I just want to say that I love you very much. And to everybody listening, if you're looking for a way to help out the families that were affected by this tragedy, I am going to include a link in the episode description where you can donate to these families. Well, like I said before, welcome back to the podcast. So the Grammys were last night, and instead of breaking them down, I think that I'm just going to do some rapid fire comments. I think I need to start with Sabrina Carpenter. When I think of Sabrina Carpenter, she's so small and she's so cute and I love her. I think she's so talented. But when I think of her, I think, well, that is my Polish cousin. And let me explain. Because she has the personality where I'm like, I feel like I know her, right? She's very personable. But I know that I don't know her, kind of in the way that I wouldn't know my Polish cousin, because how often do I get to Poland? I can't really explain that. And I don't want to, but in my mind, that does make sense. Because when I think of her, I go, well, that's my Polish cousin, even though I know I don't know her. Now, Beyonce, I think this Grammys, it was just enough was enough. It was her time. She needed to finally win Album of the Year. But I do have to say, I think they actually shocked her. I think they actually got her. Based on body language alone, I felt like she was prepared to sit in her seat, smile, grab her purse, and get in the car to beat the traffic home. And when they called her name, I think she was genuinely shocked. Personally, I am very pleased that she has won Album of the Year because I don't want to talk about her not ever winning it. This does feel right. Next, Benson Boone. This is like Sabrina Carpenter. I can't really go into more detail. He reads as AI. To me, I think that he's AI. There's something about the costume, the backflip, something is fishy about that. And so when I see him, I am that's AI. When I see him, I'm going, that's the ABBA hologram concert. It's AI. Don't believe your eyes. Don't believe everything that you see. Next, Charlie XCX, Grammy winner. I think this is important. I'm so happy that she won a Grammy. This summer was all about Charlie XCX. I think she single-handedly got millions of Americans excited to vote for Kamala Harris. When Kamala lost, I felt sorry for Charlie because I'm like, oh, that's not fair. This is defining her big moment. But now that she has this Grammy, I kind of feel like, Kamala won, right? When really she still lost, but Charlie won. And so that's nice. That someone from the UK is winning something. But when I look at Charlie, I always think she's going to rise and grind. She's not going to shower, but she is going to rise and grind. I have a soft spot for her, and I think I always will. So I am thoroughly enjoying that she's a Grammy winner. One day I want to go to the Grammys, and I want to sit next to Taylor Swift. Because when she's at these award shows, she's throwing back. She's dancing, she's cheering, she's hooting and hollering. I do believe that would be a great time. There is a moment where Cynthia Erivo can't find her seat and Taylor kind of waves Cynthia over and they share a chair and, she's down to clown at the Grammys. But while we're talking about Cynthia Erivo, I just want to say she can sing very well. Yeah, she's not an amateur. She's quite good at the singing. And there was a clip that I saw online that I truly had the opportunity to see how tiny she actually is. Because when I saw Beyonce and Cynthia standing next to each other, giving each other a hug. It reminded me of Joe Biden taking that picture with the Carters. And if you know what picture I'm talking about, you'll go, uh-huh. I see it. I get it. Chapel Roan also wins a Grammy. I love that she is a Grammy winner too, because she also, kind of like Charlie, had this amazing moment over the summer. If she wasn't talented, she absolutely would go viral for yelling at a manager. And I know that for absolute fact. I know that if she wasn't a famous pop star, Grammy winning pop star, she would absolutely be yelling at somebody in a park that their dog shouldn't be off leash. I feel that in my bones, and I know that. And I think that's why I actually do love her. Now, there was a really important moment that happened during the Grammys, and that was that Lady Gaga came out with her new song, Abracadabra. And before I go any further, I want to say our country is currently in disarray. My husband, he's from Finland, and every once in a while when things just seem so crazy, we will side-eye each other and go, should we move to Finland? And last night when Abracadabra came out and I listened to it for the first time, I looked at my husband and I said, put those bags away, we're staying. And it was the first time in a long time, I would say since November, that I felt such pride to be an American. Abracadabra is absolutely Gaga at her finest. This is the Gaga that I have been waiting, wishing, dreaming for. I don't know what's different, but she sorted everything out. She's thinking clearly. Her migraines are gone thanks to the Nurtec. She's singing not in English again, which is absolutely the right move. For me, that is a little bit like, I think we're gonna be all right. Something that makes me feel like maybe we aren't all right, RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing. He doesn't look well. I will start with that. I do feel like he looks like Jimmy Neutron got put in the microwave. And he sounds like it too. And I know that's a neurological thing, whatever. I'm not gonna touch the voice. I'm just gonna I'm going to be real for a second. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good. But on top of that, popping a Zyn during your confirmation hearing to be the head of Health and Human Services. And you know what? If that was it, I'd be like, you know what? I get it. We've all had a nit fit before. It's a long day. I can forgive that. The best way to describe the way he looks to me is, like I said, Jimmy Neutron, press 30 on the microwave. It does not look good. And now what I'm going to say next, I want you to pull up a chair. I want you to hear me out. All of his health conspiracies and suggestions, in a perfect world, you would read them and you'd go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I never thought of that. Huh, really? And you'd leave it at that. You'd read the whole post and you'd kind of scroll down and then you'd go, oh, he used to do heroin. And so then you would think, all right, you know what? I'm going to come back to this on my own time, and I'll dig a little bit deeper. Maybe I'll bookmark it, because maybe there is something in there, but first and foremost, you would always remember that the person who wrote that article was at one time addicted to heroin. People are forgetting that. A lot of his theories, they belong on Facebook, like in a Holistic Mothers Facebook group. Password protected, invite only. That's where they belong. Now, not too long ago, there was this big thing where a lot of people would put a picture of RFK Jr. shirtless next to a picture of Dr. Rachel Levine, who was the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, Dr. Levine is a 67-year-old trans woman. They would have these two pictures, like the shirtless RFK and then the Dr. Rachel Levine. And the caption underneath it would be, well, who would you rather be in charge of your health? And in my mind, the doctor, right? I would choose the person with clear skin and who can string a sentence together. Who would I rather? In charge of my health? Yeah, I would choose the doctor. And my other choice is a Kennedy? You mean the family that's been plagued with misfortune? Yeah, I think I'd choose the doctor. And, in this side by side, you have to admit, Dr. Levine, she's not the most stylish. But I'd rather that she have bad style and a good education. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are forgetting she's a doctor. And so I just think that sometimes people aren't taking into consideration the whole picture. I think they're looking at RFK and they're going, well, he's shirtless and he has a huge head. Which, yes, that is also true. Since I'm on the topic of politics, there's something else I kind of want to talk about. And I cannot stop thinking about her. And that is, of course, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Now, I want to start with this. She's 27 years old. And when I found out she was 27, I thought two things right off the bat. Wow, those have been a very long and hard 27 years. And two, maybe they mean dog years. She does not look young. And I can say that because it's her own fault that she doesn't look young. Because I think that she has the potential to look quite youthful. But, and now this is a PSA for everybody. Ladies, gentlemen, we've got to cool it on the lip flips. When you start getting too much work done when you're too young, you start to look old because when you're older, that's when you get the work done. There's this fine line of a little bit, but not too much. The lip flip. Yes, your lips do look bigger, but when you talk, you look like Jar Jar Binks. And I don't think that's the trade-off that you were looking for. You look good in an Instagram picture, but you know what we're doing now? Instagram video. And you're the press secretary. They're maybe taking a few still shots that you're going to see in the newspaper the next day, but we're watching a video. And the top lip, now it's just decorative. It's a mud flap. I almost feel like the thin lips would just be better. And we take the L on the thin lips. Honestly, a little filler would have been better than the lip flip. I've seen the lip flip pulled off before, but you're not pulling it off. You're pushing it onto me as an agenda, and I don't like that. But at least we are eliminating DEI. That is the silver lining. The colloidal silver lining. Now, let's move on. In the first episode, I did promise that we would listen to some of our voicemails, and I think it's time that we listen to the very first voicemail here on the podcast by Adam Rippon. Without further ado.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hi, Adam. Listen, I think the podcast is a great idea for you, and I don't know what you should do, but please, for God's sake, for the love of God, please don't tell us every single person you've ever slept with, every single person you've dated. These girls are beating this stuff to death in these podcasts. Keep it classy. We all love a little smut. That's true. But keep it classy like you are. You know, now they're saying Barron Trump is a ladies' man. I mean, can we just talk about something else for 5 minutes? You know what I'm saying?
If you ask me, there is no better voicemail to start the voicemails. The beating this stuff to death. Now, what a way, that is truly really a way of putting it. Not mincing your words at all whatsoever. And I like that. Honestly, let's start with the Barron Trump of it all. Now, I think we just need to look at the facts. And the facts are that he's 6'7". That should have come with a trigger warning. Yes, he's 6'7". His dad is a billionaire and his mom is a former porn star. So yeah, I can imagine that when you put all of that together, that might hold some water. Now, I did see him wave at the inauguration, and that did send chills down my spine. But I mean, I think when you just look at the math, 6'7", billionaire dad, porn star mom, it is what it is. That does feel like the makings of, and I say it in quotes, ladies' man. I want to say another thing that I'm thinking of right now. I'm going back to the Barron Trump and to the Trumps being in the White House. And this is something that it's just, it's so funny to me when I hear people say class and beauty are finally back in the White House. I can put everything I think about Melania Trump aside, and I can objectively say she is a beautiful woman. But when they say that, I'm like, there was never anybody in the White House where we were going, well, oh, there's Jill Biden in her sweatpants again, right? Like we were never doing that. I feel like every president has had custom tailored suits. There's never been a first lady who shows up to an event in an ill-fitting 9 West dress with white pumps from Nordstrom Rack. Like that's never happened. And so for the most part, I believe it's always been classy. And objectively, the Trumpish kind of style is quite gaudy and like flashy and not classy. And that's Trump, because I'm willing to give Melania the benefit of the doubt because I think that she's dressed well, albeit sometimes she's dressed like, Mr. Magoo. But to say that finally there's class and beauty back in the White House, I know nobody ever looked at Betty Ford and said, you know who you look exactly like? Cindy Crawford. But she wasn't showing up to places in a red baseball cap. But she was wearing bright colors and long sleeves. That's class. I think what they mean to say is that they've seen Melania Trump's breasts online and they've never seen Hillary Clinton's. And that's just what I think they mean to say. So the podcast where they're beating this stuff to death.
We all love a little smut. That's true.
So personally, I think that there are a lot of different kinds of podcasts out there. And I have a few that are top of mind that I think that we're going to go over them. And I think the first one is the podcast where somebody is always sharing some crazy, unbelievable story. I don't really believe in that. I don't love when people tell the bad dating stories or the nightmare boyfriend stories, because I feel like if you have so many of them, it's a tale as old as time, where if you always have bad roommates, you're probably the bad roommate. I maybe wouldn't put that out there. Do you know what I mean? I don't love that. That's kind of what I think with the horrible dating stories. And then, you have the sexual escapades of I did this crazy thing and you'll never believe what I did. And I'm like, you're right. I do not believe that you did that. And I will never believe that you did that. Even if you did do it, I don't believe it. When I hear those kinds of people share those kinds of stories, they always remind me of, okay, you're out with friends and there's always one girl who's just being a little bit overly sexual. And she looks at you and she goes, oh, don't be a prude. And then eventually she'll get to the point in the night where she looks at somebody and she goes, well, I'm really good at sex. And I always think, I bet you think you are. I saw you walk your little knock knees over here offbeat in your espadrilles. And I'm going to tell you that I think that you just might not have the rhythm that you think you do. You're not hearing the beat of the music. And there's like 100 people around you who are moving to the music. They are moving to the beat of the music. And you chose not to do what they did. And the knees clacking together like two coconut shells. I'm really good at sex. I don't think so. Now, I will say there is an extreme version of this person where I do believe everything that they do say. And somebody who is a good example of that to me is Hallie Batchelder. I listened to her episode of Call Her Daddy, where Alex Cooper was promoting her new show on her podcast network. And she talks about all these crazy scenarios that she's found herself in, and they're honestly truly insane. And she comes from a super wealthy family. And so she kind of has nothing to lose. And so when she says these things, I go, yeah, I kind of believe that. I actually believe every word that's coming out of your mouth. I am also going to say this about Hallie. I do think that she is funny. I am going to say this. I do think she could be funnier. Hear me out. Listen. Her biggest trick is that she'll say something crazy and then she'll go, should I not say that? Which is the oldest rich girl trick in the book. Because they know that they can say something shocking and people will go, oh my God. And then they will be clever and they'll go, oh, should I not say that? Which gets me to another point where people will say, I love her. Because do you know how smart you need to be that funny? And you know what? To that, I say, you don't need to be that smart because I'm going to bring up a point. One of the funniest people I know, she did not graduate from high school. She does not even have a GED. She has ADHD, but not a GED. And do I think that she could get one? Maybe. I don't know. Now, I want to go back to the Alex Cooper of it all. I actually appreciate Alex Cooper. I don't know her. I've never met her. Because when you listen to her, you're like, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that, she's saying this, she's saying that. But she's cunning because she makes everybody else spill their guts. Well, she sits on the other couch going, oh my God. So it's genius. One of the things I actually do really like about her is that she's not funny and she doesn't try to be funny, but she is fun to be around. And that, for her, is the key. That you want to be around her. She seems fun. And she's not cracking jokes, but she doesn't need to. And I think that's why that kind of works. That's why that podcast style works. Now, another podcaster that I'm thinking of is Jake Shane. I want you to know that before I go any further, when I see Jake Shane, I see a son. I see a daughter. I see somebody who I would take under my wing. You know, he doesn't need it, but I would. If you don't know who Jake Shane is, you need to look him up. And you're going to see these videos that are truly so stupid, but they're very funny and they're harmless. And that's what I love. They're completely harmless, but very funny. And that's why I feel like he's the people's podcaster. But I'm going to tell you why I respect Jake Shane. And there's a specific reason. And I think maybe this is like the athlete in me. But I saw this clip where he's talking to Tate McRae about how they go and work out at the Aloe yoga gym. And there's footage of him doing the class. And in this yoga class, you can see his poor little body shaking like it's in the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. It looks like his reformer is on the San Andreas fault line. The body is rejecting this type of movement. But do you know what he did? He stayed in position and he finished that workout. Now, do I think that he was able to walk the next day? Absolutely not. And I actually don't know if he was able to walk for the next few days. Because when I tell you the body was rejecting what was happening to it, that body was going, you will pay the price because I'm about to shut this thing down. It's what won me over forever. And now somebody else who's always beaten this stuff to death.
These girls are beating this stuff to death in these podcasts.
Beating it to death, Joe Rogan. Now you guys, come on. I do think that we need to get real. And so when I see these clips of Joe Rogan, I'm just thinking, why are so many people living by his advice? They're completely influenced by this guy. And it's always the same kind of shape of man, too. Like honeydew melon, 2 chopsticks coming out the bottom. That's sort of the shape. Top heavy, 40s, 50s, something, white guy. And it's all these teenage boys. They just go goo goo gaga. But I will say this. He does seem fully invested in whatever his guests have to say. But, you know, when we're talking about the podcasts, when I wanted to start this podcast, I thought, you know, should I do it with a co-host? Should I have guests? And I thought, you know, at first, I have a lot to say and I can, you know, rant and ramble until I'm truly blue in the face. You know this. I thought, you know, maybe at first, let me get my footing, let me get my bearings, and I'll figure it out. I'll see how it goes. But at first, I don't need to have guests on. I feel like the last thing we need is another show where I interview what? Celebrities? I see a lot of podcasts out there, and I'm thinking of one in particular right now. I'm not going to name it. It doesn't matter. A lot of people like this person, so why will I yuck their yum? It truly doesn't matter because they're not the only person that does this. I guess it's not even really a person. It's more of like a genre. And the genre is big influencer from social media platform becomes podcaster. That's basically the formula. And they have a cheery disposition. But what I don't like is that I can obviously tell that they're using every guest that they have on to just showcase themselves, right? Like they're not interviewing, they're not even really having conversations with. It makes me think, I don't think that you should be interviewing anyone. But the big hook into that kind of podcast is that, well, I have a huge personality. And that's what my fans love. And I'm like, maybe. But you really think that you are something else because you're out here ripping one-liners thinking you're Jerry Seinfeld when in reality you've got the comedic chops of a roast beef. And you're not doing an interview. You're just talking over somebody else who's in the same room. Because if we're going to talk interviews, we got to talk Barbara Walters. Because Barbara Walters was looking people in the eye saying, so, no more heroin to Courtney Love. Or she'll look Celine Dion up and down and ask, so are you anorexic or is it natural? Excuse me, Barbara Walters? Now, I want you to know that I believe that that is insane. Like, she's not cutting them off to talk about that one time where somebody said something and then I really got them good. No, she's not doing that. But you know what? I'm not doing that either. Because I do believe that is diabolical. I will have people on this podcast at some point, but right now I can't and I shouldn't be given the responsibility. I feel like they're kind of using the guests as a way to like facilitate their own personality. They can't get it out of themselves. So they need somebody there to be like, please help me get this out of me. It makes me reflect. And when I reflect, I say to myself, well, what can you do on your own? You know, you're not doing anything on your own. And then for the most part, you'll be really funny on social media. Yeah, for 30 seconds, you strung 3 words together. You used someone else's audio. You didn't even use your own audio. You used a song, a trending song. And that's why I feel like the art of the interview, that's kind of gone on the podcasts. Not many people do them well. They go the route of, I'm going to have conversations with. No, you're not. You're going to bring your friend on and you're going to cut them off 1,000 times. That's what you're doing. Now, I'll go back to Alex Cooper one more time. Hear me out. I think Alex Cooper is asking real interview questions. She's not giving it the full Barbara, but she's asking 1 or 2 tough ones and then she kind of backs up, which like that does make her stronger than me. But where she is weaker than me is when she is reading those tough questions. Sometimes I am a little like, come on, Alex, sound it out. You know, like, you got this. But in those moments, I do go, well, she is so successful and beautiful and rich that she doesn't need to remember how to read. I always do get a bit of a thrill when she does read a sentence. It tickles me. It doesn't tickle me in the same way as signing a $125 million deal. I feel like that would tickle me more, but it tickles me in a way of having not that much money. And one day I hope to forget how to read. And honestly, the way things are going, I might. Sooner rather than later. I know that if I ever go on Call Her Daddy, I already know that I will have the time of my life. But I really wanted to start this on my own for a few reasons. One, I wanted to edit it myself. I wanted to help it find its own sound. Because, you know, a lot of podcasts, they don't sound good. Because you have a bunch of people who are concerned about, oh, we got to have a studio. We need a studio. And I just want to be on the record and say that I do not think that there's anything more hokey pokey than 2 Wayfair chairs next to each other facing a camera with a microphone in front of them. I just don't think that looks good. And nobody's sitting still, playing with their hair, fixing their shirt. They're not talking into the microphone. I have to tell you, it's a pet peeve when I'm listening to a podcast and I'm like, can you please just sit still and talk into the microphone like an adult? And so I just didn't want that because I just don't like bad quality things. And so I just felt, let me figure this out on my own. I didn't want to have to run ads that I didn't want to run. Like I'm going to do an ad for BetterHelp. No, come on. Listen, if I ever do an ad for BetterHelp, I want you to know 2 things. 1, the check was either really good, or 2, we are absolutely going into a recession. You've been warned. But you'll know if I ever do the BetterHelp ad. You'll know which is which. And I believe that you'll act accordingly. I wanted to be in control of what was happening. And if at first the podcast doesn't make any money, that's fine. Because I think eventually it will. I start crying. I will say that I know that I will be a gracious host. But I'm not going to bring anybody on here so that I can be floundering, trying to figure out the way that it's going to sound or whatever. It's not me. I'm going to let the show get itself together, and then we'll bring people on, right? It'll be more fun for everybody that way. So yes, to finally answer your question, I think there's a lot of different kinds of podcasts out there. And I firmly believe that this podcast will find its own voice. And it's currently finding its own voice and sound and look. And I'm just so grateful that you're all here, for the ride. I think it is time for us to say goodbye. Now, this has been the podcast by Adam Rippon. I am Adam Rippon. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you give us a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to call and leave a voicemail, you can. The number is 310-909-7117. We'll see you next time here on the podcast.